All right, welcome back to the show. As you heard, Lorenzo Alexander is here, and now we get a chance to dive into what we saw over the weekend with Zoe. Look, Zoe, first half I didn't expect from the Cardinals offensively. They get a 20-0 lead.
Yeah.
Defense looked, pretty similar to what it did in the first game against the Commanders. Second half, what went wrong in the second half? Because it felt like everything that had to did.
Did, right. And I want to start off on a positive note, man.
Okay.
Does anybody have a time machine? I would love to be able to jump in a time machine, go about, I probably need about 8 years younger. 32 is probably a good year for me.
Okay.
And play with Dennis Gardeck. Man, oh my gosh, man. I watch him play. It's fun. It's just fun
cool.
to see a dude out there, hair on fire, literally hair on fire, running around, getting his opportunity and making a name for himself, right, as a defensive player that started on special teams. I had a chance to talk with him last week when I saw him. He came out to one of our games, actually, with the Cardinals. And he was like, man, I just feel so awkward, man, because I'm not on all the special teams. I said, man, just embrace this moment, man, because it's fun to watch you. And he was still trying to be humble. I said, dude, it's fun to watch you play. I mean, he's getting some sacks, but just his hustle. I mean, one play kind of got jumbled up. He literally pushed Zaven Collins out of the way. Zaven falls on his face, and then he sprints to jump in on the tackle. And just seeing that type of enthusiasm, that's why I think their defense is playing above, right? Because you see a guy like that, I have to step my game up. I have to be physical. I have to run to the football. I have to do my job. And I just want to just give a shout out to him because I know he's not going to get the national attention that he deserves. But watching him, it's really inspiring. So I just want to start off with that. Now,
well, hold on. One thing on Gardeck real quick,
yeah.
Just because, the way your career went and what he has had to do, like, it feels like he's had to prove himself over and over again. And then it kind of felt like, okay, he's proven
that's
himself.
That's the National Football League.
Well, true.
Amen, bro.
But when you switch coaches, don't you have to do it even more in his position?
You have to do that every year.
Yeah.
Especially a guy that comes in undrafted the way he did, a special teams guy where he's not expected to be on the team. You have to prove yourself. And it's not every year. It's every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every day.
Yes.
And the guy that every day, and I'm serious. I mean, people don't really understand what it's like to be in a locker room and literally see a guy that was there yesterday, gone the next, and then that locker is then to somebody else, and then the next day it could be to somebody else. Like when Steve Keim was here, he was known for rotating that bottom five, right?
Yep.
Guys like Dennis was really close to that bottom five, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to show up every single day and give it all that you have and be invested every single day. But to see him finally get his opportunity from a defensive perspective as well is just cool. And he's the same dude. Humble, hungry, eating every day. He don't care who lines up in front of him. And if you ain't on board, you better get out my way because I'm trying to get to this football and hunt cats up. And so just a lot of respect for the way he plays the game. And that's the culture that they're trying to create, right? They want everybody, regardless of your talent and your ability, they want you to play like that. If you play like that, you're going to win a lot of football games and be in those type of games. Now, what happened in the second half, right? Again, what I saw in the first game, a lot of people on the back end running free. But unlike against Sam Howell and the Commanders, they were able to find and exploit that with Daniel Jones and the Giants receivers. And that's what really led to the demise, those big explosive plays, which is another cardinal sins as a defense that you don't want to give up because it's really hard to overcome. And then you couple that with the offense inability to be consistently efficient, right? So you saw them come out, respond, downhill, running hard. James Conner, 53, Trey Counter, just nasty down the hill, just physical, right? Boom, score. And then after that, they lost their ability to execute. So then you was playing behind the sticks, people jumping off sides, right? Negative plays, people missing blocks, right? And then the Giants are executing. So it doesn't take long to lose that lead, and it was between the explosive plays and their inability to be consistent on offense as far as blocks and being disciplined pre-snap that I think ultimately led to the night. So nothing huge or significant, just doing your job, right? Knowing where you need to be at really cost them.
It's interesting just listening to you, of course, summarize everything that happened right there. It makes me think of Budda Baker. And what do you think? What kind of difference would Budda Baker have made?
Right. I mean, he's a different version of Dennis, right? He's uberly talented and plays just as hard as as the next man next to him. And so I think he would have galvanized, maybe been able to stop the bleeding a little sooner, right? Hey, man, what's going on? Let's get together. Let's figure this thing out. Or just make a play because he's a playmaker. So I think he would have been able to stop it. And sometimes you need a guy and you don't have a leader back there. You have maybe some younger guys or guys who have never been in a leadership role where they're able to vocalize it, because sometimes you got to say something, right?
Yes.
You got to say something.
Yes, sometimes you do.
And so maybe they didn't have that ability. And I would assume Buddha was on the sideline, but sometimes when you're not playing, you feel like you can't interject yourself. And so hopefully when you see that, and maybe this is a growing experience for him too, hey, I got to say something. I'm watching this, man. Let me galvanize these dudes right now. Hey, we got to get on the same page. What are we seeing? We had the same thing happen last week. This can't become a trend. So let's get this thing right. Over-communicate, because that's the biggest thing that typically happens when there's a lack of communication. And I think on that big one, they motioned out to like empty. They made a check, and I don't know if everybody got it. It's just that's what it looks like. So you have to over-communicate, especially when you have a lot of new faces, young guys out there that haven't played. Going this week, you signed a guy off a practice squad from the Niners that's new, that's may play. Don't know how much, but you have to over-communicate, and it really started Monday, watching film together as a defensive back group, staying a little bit longer, so that we can say, hey, when we see this is what we're going to say. This is how I'm going to play it. This is the look I'm going to give. And you have to go above and beyond what just the coordinators or the established meetings are, but as a unit, really watch it, because this is something glaring that you have to be able to remove, because everybody's going to exploit it. It's a passing league, and that's the last thing you want to give up is these big chunk passes.
One of the biggest, at least one of my biggest takeaways when that game ended, Zoe, was it just felt like a missed opportunity. And you look at everything they're trying to build as far as culture and buy-in and attention to detail and accountability. And I'm not saying that all goes away now, but how much would it have helped the coaching staff to be able to say, look, you guys are doing all this. We're 1-1 and we could be 2-0, as opposed to we're coming off now a gut-wrenching loss.
Yes, it's always better to learn in a win versus learning in a loss, right? It's just easier because you feel good, you were receptive. And so you start to struggle a little bit, but I think it's still early enough in the season, and the leadership on this team, right? Still a lot of young guys. Things are looking better, just the result, is different. So you have to really trust the process, trust what they're teaching in the culture, because you can see this football team's different, but they still have to work on the little things, especially on the offensive side, which has been an Achilles heel with the jumping off sides, for the last 4 or 5 years. And those are the things that you cannot – this league is too hard. It's already hard enough to win. You can't beat yourself, right? And a couple of those drives, it's 3rd and 6. Now we look up, it's 3rd and 15. I mean, there's really no call for that. And they don't have really the playmakers to go out there, just throw it to D-Hop, throw it up to Larry, right? They don't really have that guy right now to do that. And so you have to play sound, disciplined football especially when you're talented, maybe a little below the standard as far as having an elite guy.
I just got to ask you this quickly right here. JG stepped up and took full. He was so accountable. I loved it. He said, this is on us. We got out coached in this game. For me, many times that's code for, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fall on the sword for my guys right here. As a former player, I can't stand that. You call the play, coach, and I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll execute it.
Right.
The whole out coach thing, everyone loves to point to that and say that was the reason why. I do give him credit for getting up in front of the world and saying, we got out coached. On this.
I don't think that's the case.
But it offends me as a former player.
Well, I don't think that's the case. And he's probably being critical of himself, and maybe they could have made a couple of adjustments, or maybe ran a play action a little bit better, right? But they couldn't run the ball after that first drive. The Giants made an assertive effort. Hey, we're about to play single high, bring a guy up, and you could see their intensity of the Giants shift. Now, as a Cardinals player, you need to rise your game up. You got to make those blocks regardless, because that's the ultimate sign of a football team. Can I still execute when the other team knows what's going on? Because believe me, I've been on a defense where we all knew. I remember this until the day I die. The Saints, I think it was 2017. They ran the ball 22 2 straight times against our defense, and we could not stop it. Knew exactly it's coming. They running right here. They running right here. 4 or 5 yards a pop. It didn't matter.
Demoralizing.
It didn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So you have to develop that, right? Of course they know what you're doing. You're up by 3 touchdowns. You got James Conner, and it shouldn't matter.
Yes.
Get on your block, win your one-on-one matchup, and let him get 4 or 5 yards. Maybe you don't have a big explosion play, but we gonna move these sticks, right? And then when you get in 3rd and 3, 3rd and 5, you can't jump off sides, right? Because you slow up the momentum. And so I understand why you say that, because maybe there's a couple of plays in there as a coach I may change, but players have to execute because that game was there to be won, right? It had nothing to do with coaching, had a lack of responsibility on the players executing what was called.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
All right, hour number 2 of the show, live from the Auction Community Studios. It is Wolf and Luke, and it is the lowdown on a Wednesday. Lorenzo Alexander in studio here as we look ahead now, Zoe, to this Sunday coming up and the Dallas Cowboys. And we obviously all had them in our top 5 earlier. It's kind of unavoidable with what they have done. Is there a way? Is there a path here for the Cardinals to pull off an upset? I know it would be a big upset. I haven't looked at the line. I'm sure it's not kind to the Cardinals.
Big play on special teams, maybe a return, probably 3 or 4 turnovers. You got to equal whatever that defense is going to do potentially to the Cardinals offense. So I guess I say they got to protect the football, take it away, and find like a special play somewhere. Maybe it's a couple of shots like we saw with the Giants last week. A special teams play, maybe a block punt. Just something that's going to energize and shift the game because this Dallas defense is, just on another level right now the way they're playing. And so you have to overcome them. They're scoring points on defense. So you're not just worried about their offense scoring, you're worried about their defense scoring. And it just is what it is, which we've seen for the first 2 weeks. And, people were all, up in arms the first week when they were dinking and dunking. You're going to see something very similar game plan because, you got Lawrence, you got Micah Parsons. It's going to be, hey, let's get these dudes running sideways, get the ball, max protection. It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
Right, so you gotta make this game ugly, physical. Don't try to drop back and put it in Dobbs' hands. Right, run the ball. James Conner, like I said, I would always run at Micah. Double team him. Yeah. Right? Make him work. Don't run away from him because he's too athletic. Yeah, you're going to chase everything down, wrap it up, run it right at him, make him point and hey, you 2 dudes block him. Maybe you 3 guys block him.
This side of the team.
Yeah, whatever that
Micah
is.
Parsons.
Whatever that looks like. But you have to make the game physical. Get him kind of maybe off his game early, right? I think guys oftentimes try to make that splash play. But if you can maybe hit a guy in the mouth early, double team him, knock him off the ball, have a couple of good successful plays running his side. Then you come back with some play action. You can kind of get the ball rolling. But you definitely got to clean up the jumping off sides. And then defensively, obviously their offense hasn't been able or hasn't had to do anything really. Yeah. But obviously Pollard is still explosive. And CeeDee Lamb is explosive as well. And you cannot allow them to have any explosive plays. You have to keep them in front of you and really make Dak and this offense do something, right, and sustain a drive. And so I think they have enough defensively to potentially do that, but they have to fix it, especially on the back end.
Do you think there's ever going to be a day where Micah Parsons will change the game of football the way that Lawrence Taylor changed the game of football?
He's doing that now. We're watching it.
Do you think people will be looking for a Micah Parsons?
Yeah, everybody. Yeah.
2.
He's the new era of the outside linebacker rush in type of guy. I think LT changed the game in that, and then you've had guys that are very similar to that, whether it's Von or
they were all
DeMarcus, always looking for that guy that's like a linebacker type, but they really just rush the passer and just create havoc, right?
Yep.
And we've had those guys here and there throughout it. I think Micah's just the next in line of that lineage that LT created that is just extremely impressive to watch. How big he is, how fast he is, how instinctual he plays. He's just everywhere all the time. And so it's a guy that you have to know where he lines up at. And what I like about Dallas, they just don't put him on the left side or put him on the right side. They'll put him in the middle, over one of your guards. They move him around. So you really never know who's going to get that work. And that's probably one of the most fearful things probably as an offensive lineman, because normally you can walk into the game, right tackle, man, you got to worry about him this week. I don't got to worry about him. Have a great day.
Well, that was LT.
Yeah.
You knew where LT was going to be. He was going to line up as the right defensive end.
Right.
For the defense, he was going to line up over that left tackle.
Yeah.
You knew where LT was going to be.
So you knew all week the left tackle's going to, and the left tackle knew too. Yeah.
And it made it maybe a little bit easier. Even that just shows you how dominant LT was, right? But you can chip it in, right? You can keep a tight end. But when he comes down to that inside, okay, how do we attack him? I don't know where he's going to be at. Who's going to be the chip? Right? Are we going to slide the protection to him? Well, we got to worry about DeMarcus Lawrence too. We got to worry about these other tackles. So it creates, when the coordinator has the ability to move him and is willing to do that, and he's willing to do that, and can produce anywhere, whether it's at D tackle, by alignment, or edge, it's really hard. And that's why he's so productive, because you can't dial up a scheme to stop him because he's everywhere, all at once, it feels like sometimes.
He's basically two players, isn't he? I mean, he's like, you move him to the inside, he's a different player. Move him to the out. There's not, you would know better than me on this, but I don't see a lot of other defensive players around the league right now where you're like, oh, okay, that guy's basically doing two jobs every week, or more, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, they just do a good job of finding ways to exploit the weaknesses of that offensive line in their protections. And if that means moving Micah over center, they'll do that. That means putting him at the left or right guard over as a tackle, they'll do that. And so he's an end, like on first and second down, but on that third down package, you just don't know where he may be. And it causes a lot of issues for guys because you don't know how to slide the protection from one third down to the next.
I'm wondering how many max protections we might actually see from the Arizona Cardinals.
You better dial it up.
Look, if you're going to take shots, and I think you have to still do that. I think I think it would be a mistake not to take your shots. Now it's got to be a situation where you pick your spots as to where you're going to do it. You just can't do it willy-nilly, of course. You got to pick your spots, but I think, go max protection and let Hollywood try to run by somebody.
Yeah, that helps. And that's why the run game is so important, because then you create some indecision, especially if it's, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4. Are they going to run it or take a shot? They've had success running the ball.
And it's the one thing they don't do great defensively. Is stop the run.
Yeah, and so if you can create a little bit of hesitation, and that's all you need sometimes. Okay, I got that extra click, I can get the ball off. Maybe I'm getting hit still, but at least I'm getting the ball off versus taking a sack or a strip fumble, and he's impacting the play more than it needs to be. So those are like the little things, like the game within the game that matter. Play calling matter, being effective, right? Oh, they just ran a inside zone for 3. Man, can we for 3 yards? Can we pass the ball? No. That's setting Micah up. So when he sees that same look, now he thinks it's a pass, right? Or no, it's a boot. So you have to keep guys off schedule, but you got to stay ahead of the chains as an offense while you're doing that.
Yep.
All right, we get Zoe for one more segment here. So I want to get into the injuries that the defense is dealing with, Zoe, and specifically Buddha. I know we talked about him briefly earlier. But it's not just what he does on the field in terms of leadership on a team like this. Wolf and I were talking yesterday, like Kaiser White, seems like he's a pretty strong leader. Zaven Collins, it's not like they don't have anybody else that knows how to lead, but Buda Baker's different. So mid-season, how do you replace something like that in the room? I
mean, you don't replace him. You can't replace him. And he'll still be in the meeting rooms and talking to guys and being in the building, but when a guy, his presence isn't on the field, it's a significant this hole that you can't feel, and it's really hard to describe. But if you have a guy that you going to work every single day with, right? They're gonna show up and do their job and do it at a great level. You feel really good when you're around them for some reason, and when they're not there, you notice that they're not there, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially what Buddha is going to be like when he's not on the field, because you still see him at work every day, see him at practice, you hear his voice, but then when you show up on the field, it's like, hey, man, Buddha ain't out here, right? And you don't get his playmaking ability. You don't maybe get those words of encouragement that he may give you when you're out on the field, or maybe a check from play to play. Because I think people don't realize that this adjustments don't just happen when you come to the sideline, right? You may get beat with a play, and most teams will go right back to that same play. And Buddha's whispering, hey, let's do it next time like this, right in the middle of the play, right? Or his vision before the snap, it comes out, hey, alert. And that's what the play is, right? And so you miss that aspect of who he is, his intelligence, his ability to impact, and the way he makes you feel as a player, confident, right? If you a corner and you got Buddha Baker behind you, you feel a little bit different than a guy that may be just getting off, or you sign, right, playing behind you. Like, oh, okay, I don't know. I got to really lock down. It's more anxiety on you because I don't have Buddha behind me. So all those little things add up to I guess, less effective play from a defense when you miss one of your star players that is of the same ilk as a Buddha Baker.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about it as well, Zoe, is Buddha Baker, just by going out on the field and playing like Buddha Baker, running into the darkness,
right.
just playing like Buddha Baker, immediately challenges you.
Just that mentality.
As a man, standing there on the sideline. You might be the offense. You're out there on You're sitting there watching your defense playing, and Buddha's running into the darkness, just waylaying people all over the place. That challenges you as a man to go out there and do your job the way he does his job. And if you're not doing it, why not?
Yeah. Exactly. And then from an offensive standpoint, the opponent you're playing, that's one less dude I got to worry about. I feel comfortable now maybe running over the middle as a receiver because I'm not worried about this crazy dude who's going to try to run through me. Or as a running back hitting the hole, I don't have to worry about this crazy dude that may come out of nowhere and jack me up. I mean, and from obviously a coordinator, okay, I don't have to worry about Buddha this week as far as attack. Okay, we're fine going there. All right, I don't have to worry. So it actually opens things up for an opponent just feeling more comfortable in their willingness to do certain things where normally it's like, should we do it? You put that little bit of hesitation in their mind, which allows for, obviously, the Cardinal defense to make more plays.
Right. Nothing like making Dallas more comfortable as they come into Phoenix here. This is Nick Rallis yesterday talking about one guy who they might lean on for some of the leadership, at least, and that, of course, is Kaiser White.
I don't think anyone's going to replace Buddha Baker as a leader. I think guys are going to be themselves, and I think we have enough leaders throughout the defense that there's not going to be a void in leadership. But no one's, hey, you got to be Buddha now until Buddha. No, it's not that. I want guys to be themselves and not try to be someone that they're not. But I think we have a group of leaders and a group of just good teammates, whether they look at themselves as leaders or not, that will be fine.
So I really played that cut just so I could ask you about Kaiser White and just what you've seen from him. Yeah, I mean, that's a nice
like the way he plays the game too. I mean, he flies around. How big is he? He looks smaller on the field, but he plays physical and big, right? Just running around, hitting cats, going around blocks, getting to the ball. He always finds a way to get off blocks and get to the ball. And he just plays big in the middle. And I've really enjoyed watching him move around and fly around too. I mean, even with it was illegal, but the Sam Howell hit, okay, all right, there we go,
this is how we're gonna play. Okay.
All right.
It's West Virginia,
Virginia. And he consistently does it, week in and week out, through these first 2 weeks, is just far as getting to the ball, being a physical presence, and hunting up guys, and I like that about him. He brings that demeanor of dominance and physicality that you want from your middle linebacker.
One of the big things I thought happened in the second half of that Giants game to the defense was the defensive line.
Yeah.
The defensive line and the rotation of the defensive line, and especially when Carlos Watkins. Carlos Watkins he's this guy in 2 games right now. He was a starter to me the way he was playing. He was playing so well, I thought. Yeah. For this defensive line, and Carlos Watkins, when he went out of this game and all of a sudden there were 4 guys in that rotation, you know how tough that is.
It gets
as
hard.
A defensive line, and you could see it, I think, in that fourth
Especially
quarter.
the Giants, they were leaning on them too. I mean, they were running the ball, running the rock, and then they went to the play action more so than anything because the run was working so well, so they just kind of set them up. They started running a ton of like RPOs or run pass conflicts, as we call it, from a defensive perspective, that allowed the Giants to kind of get into this rhythm. And because they were tired, they never was able to get any of those negative plays early to maybe get them out of that type of offense. And so, to your point, that definitely you could tell as the game got deeper, the line of scrimmage for the Cardinals started getting pushed back in the wrong direction over time.
Just on Watkins, too, Jeremy Fowler tweeted out this morning the bicep injury from week 2 is going to require surgery. Per source, could miss significant time. So that's
a biceps.
Yeah.
And today, when Jonathan Gannon spoke to the media, he was asked about that. Here this was.
There's a report out about Carlos Watkins needing surgery that he could miss significant time. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, just that.
Well, I was hoping he was going to shoot it down. He really did not.
I hate that for that dude. Seriously. He was playing so well, man.
Him and LJ Collier are already out. Those are two guys you were hoping maybe could be something here.
Lucky Fotu was playing so well, too.
So you factor in the injuries on defense. You factor in it's Dallas and San Francisco coming to town. The one thing that I really liked about the first 2 weeks was the attitude this defense plays with.
Right.
How do you keep that attitude going, even if these are both losses coming up? Because you're facing two really tough teams.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going in thinking that, but let's say they do. Let's say they go 0-2 and they're 0-4. Can they keep that attitude on defense?
You can keep that mindset, right? That's a choice that you make when you show up to work every single day, regardless of what's going on around you. The hard part is at some point, right, the reality is if you keep getting deeper into the depth, right, because of injuries and guys who are just not ready to be out there, right, when you're losing games, it's hard to overcome. Like, man, we got to still be physical. We still got to show up.
Yeah.
We still got to do this. We don't have the talent, right? And that's hard to overcome. And so, again, it's going to go to the leadership. I know Dennis Gardeck is going to play the same way regardless, right? Kaiser White is going to play the same regardless. And that's where the leadership has to come into, regardless of whoever steps on this field and regardless of whatever our circumstances look like on the scoreboard, what are you representing? Who are you? Right? Is who you are predicated based on the scoreboard or who we know you to be? And that's the type of thing you gotta have. You gotta respect a guy like a Dennis, right? He calling you out on that. All right, I gotta play hard, right? Because everybody doesn't innately have that about them.
Oh yeah.
But they got a couple of guys on that roster that can keep the team together long enough to maybe hopefully get some of the guys back, play well, and just always be reminded, right? You're representing something much bigger than this scoreboard. You're representing yourself when you step on the field. Every time I stepped out, I wanted guys to respect me and understand how I was going to bring it, regardless,
Yes.
right? Because it's hard to win this league. So I can't be predicated on wins or losses. I gotta play based on who I've been made to be, what I've cultivated, the investment that I've put in. Right? I'm not gonna just waste that because of score. I'm gonna still go out here. Amen. I'm gonna give you everything I got. You're going to have to worry about me, right? You may still win, but you're going to know you played our team. You're going to feel it, right? So, and that's just the way you got to approach it. And that's what's so unique about football. I mean, you have to be in that mindset regardless. Or you end up getting hurt or embarrassed, right? And you don't never want to leave the field with that type of feeling.
So, Zoe, would you play this game in an alley?
Always, man. I mean,
you wanted to play in front of the
I
crowd,
was different,
didn't you?
Man. It's a couple
Oakland.
of guys, Oakland. I was around some old school dudes that played different, right? So it didn't matter. Like I tore my bicep, I'm still out here playing. Not to say that his injury, because you need surgery, is different, right?
Yeah.
I got an axillary nerve. I'm still out here playing. I've always felt compelled. I had to play regardless of what was going on with me, regardless if I've been on some 3-13 teams. When a team walked off the field, they're going to say, man, that 97 or that 57 or whatever number I had on that time, woo, right? And that's just how I had to play if I wanted to be in this league. That was just my mentality and how I had to go about my business, the way I was brought up.
Ditto.
So you have to, if you can embody that, especially good players, that's what Hall of Fame players are. But they just have more talent than I do, and they have that same mentality. But if you can embody that mentality, you can play in this league a long time because you actually do more losing than you do winning for the most part.
Yeah.
But if you can embody it, I'm gonna show up, be physical, I'm gonna be a professional, be a great teammate every single day. People can trust that. I can lean on you. I want you in my foxhole. I want you in that alley walking with me. And you can be extremely under-talented compared to everybody else and play in this league double-digit years if you choose to do that.
This is why we have Zoe in here
File, please.
every week. Yeah. So thanks a lot, man. We appreciate it.
Always.